This book can be deeply annoying because the two characters are insanely frustrating, Caucasian, and bad at communication. Hello, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Zulkef and you're watching Zulkef Plus, the literary tea party where we read, rant, and dissect capitalism with a literary touch. Feel like my intros are becoming nonsense outros. Today we will be talking about overconsumption culture in context of Microtrends, Normal People by Sally Rooney, and how the two things relate in context of Marxism. We've had this, and also this, and now we have labubus, the ugly monster doll that you just can't seem to escape if you dare to open TikTok. If you clicked on this video and you don't have any idea what the labubu is, then congrats, you've been touching enough grass. Let me give you a little labubu backstory. Back in 2015, book illustrator Casing Lang started a new series called The Monsters. The series draws heavily on Casing Lang's childhood fascination with Nordic mythology and folklore. A central character in the series, Labubu is a small mischievous monster with distinctive high pointed ears and serrated teeth. It's one of the most ugliest things that I have ever seen. A Chinese retailer, Pop Mart, began selling Labubu toys in 2019, marking the start of a partnership with Casing Lang, the artist, to turn his fictional characters into collectible figurines. These toys were initially sold in blind boxes, contributing to their popularity and collectability. Fast forward to 2023 and Pop Mart began selling Labubu toys in form of keychains and plushies. Mid 2024, Blackpink's Lisa started posting Labubu dolls on her socials, and in November she showed up in a Vanity Fair video holding a giant ass Labubu. This video was about her obsession with Pop Mart, and she opens a bunch of blind boxes of these toys in that video. And at this point we've seen everybody from Dua Lipa to Rihanna to Kim Kardashian with this monstrosity. So why does everybody feel so inclined to buy it? Labubu dolls are the epitome of consumerism, while simultaneously these dolls are also a recession indicator. It vaguely reminds me of the lipstick effect that I studied in economics class back in college. The lipstick effect is an economic and psychological theory that suggests consumers tend to purchase more small, affordable luxury items like a lipstick during economic downturns, even as they cut back on larger, more expensive purchases. It implies that in times of financial stress, people seek out these smaller indulgences for a psychological boost and to maintain a sense of normalcy. Ever since the COVID-19 pandemic, the entire world has been going through an economic stress as billionaires get more and more rich. Just today I read that Trump is trying to get 500 metric tons of food destroyed instead of it reaching starving children. The aid was halted to the point where the food was expired. So yeah, that is the current economic climate that we're going through, all thanks to the billionaires. However, back to the main topic of this video, overconsumption. In this time and age of internet, overconsumption is not a new concept. Rather, it is an evil that constantly reinvents itself. Every year, TikTok decides to pick on one absolutely useless object and influences millions of people to spend their hard-earned money on that slop in name of collectibles. Last year, it was the Stanley Cups, and influencers out there had entire displays of their Stanley Cups in all sizes and colors. Meanwhile, at the supermarkets, people were fighting over the limited edition Stanley Cups. Labubus are pretty much the same thing. Pop Mart uses the blind box strategy to sell these dolls. It leans heavily on the artificial scarcity. There are some usual colors and then there are some rare colors like the coffee colored one. Meanwhile, the most rare one is the human-sized mint green Labubu that sold at auction for around $70,000. It plays deeply with the FOMO culture and convinces people that they need to have at least one of these dolls, if not all of them. There's so many videos out there of people waiting in lines for hours or being at the store early in the day just so they can get their hands on the newest edition. Meanwhile, influencers are all over TikTok opening a new box every day, walking to the store and buying new ones and being disappointed if they don't end up getting the color that they were expecting to have. And all of these videos have millions of views and likes, and it only pushes the wheel forward and the cycle continues. And to make it even worse, Labubu dolls sell out out in a few seconds. So there's a whole resale market of labubus where people are reselling their open packets 10 to 20 times the original price. It's just another marketing tactic of Pop Mart. They stock these dolls up in vending machines and they're aware that these dolls will sell out within a few minutes, hence making the artificial scarcity that entangles consumers up in an anxiety loop, and when the FOMO hits, they're ready to buy these dolls from the resellers no matter how much the price. Even if we are to believe that it's okay if people are spending a bit extra on getting what they want, we still have a problem, and that is lafufus.
Oh, you thought this was a rabbit?
Lafufus are basically labubu rip-offs. And yes, on TikTok you'll find tons of people who are getting scammed by these alleged resellers. Most of these rip-offs are not remotely identical to the real thing, and it's so depressing to see so many people spending so much money on the fake ones. And from the looks of it, they're not going to stop anytime soon, at least for the next few months. So basically, yeah. Meanwhile, the only other option to get the color that you want is to buy an entire box of 6 dolls that cost about $50 to $70 depending upon where you're buying it from. Advertently, this is just creating a lot of waste and killing the environment. Even if people stop buying labubus today, it will only be replaced by another microtrend and the cycle will carry on. However, I just cannot make a video about an issue without taking a deep dive into sociology, or in this case, economics, through the lens of literature. Today we will be talking about Normal People by the literary queen of Marxism, Sally Rooney. In a nutshell, it's a book about white people going through an on and off relationship for 200 pages. My words from 6 years ago when I first read it. However, the book provides a little more nuance than that, and the book might have something to add a little bit to our current sociological climate. It follows Connell and Marianne from their school years to their university life as the two try to navigate their relationship amidst their class difference that makes it impossible for them to be together. During their time at college, they try to work it out with different people but repeatedly go back to each other, with their social difference coming at play each time. Though I don't find this book particularly groundbreaking, but I do appreciate the message that it tries to give out. That is, love is impossible to thrive under capitalism. Normal People is saturated with quiet calculations: who owes what, who can ask for help, and who is allowed to be vulnerable. The emotional stakes are inseparable from the financial ones. Normal People is Sally Rooney's earlier work and doesn't really scream this message to the reader's face. Her later works like Beautiful World, Where Are You, and Intermezzo are more loud about their political stances. But if you are to look at the subtext of Normal People, it's pretty evident in the book that it's a Marxist work of fiction and tries to make sense of finding love in a capitalist world. At the beginning of the novel, Connor is a popular soccer player at school and Marianne is a deeply lonely and a reserved girl. Connell is a working class boy and his mother works as a cleaner at Marianne's house, and the book opens when Connell goes to Marianne's house to pick up his mother. Once the relationship between the two strikes up, they're very determined to keep it hidden from public eye, as none of them want to be seen with each other in public. It's very ironic and interesting, and I think it perfectly sets the tone for how the rest of the book is going to be. This book can be deeply annoying because the two characters are insanely frustrating, Caucasian, and bad at communication, especially at Connell's part. They're both terrible at communicating their feelings with each other. Marianne's miscommunication happens primarily due to her sense of being unlovable and takes a very personal approach. However, Connell's miscommunication is rather interesting as it's deeply rooted in class consciousness and class anxiety. In the later section of the novel, when Connell is unable to keep on living in Dublin, he doesn't directly ask Marianne to help him out for giving him a space, even though she affords to help him out. He wants her to connect the dots and offer him space, but of course she's blind to his struggles as a working class boy and doesn't make the offer. This ends up with them breaking up and Connell returns home while Marianne just thinks that Connell is basically done with her. Again, not very interesting on her part, but deeply interesting on his. There's a quiet, relentless emotional labor that runs underneath Connell's story, and it stems almost entirely from his class anxiety. At college, Connell is hyper aware of the unspoken rules of the upper class, the way they talk, the books they cite, and even the way they dress. Despite earning a scholarship, he stays an outsider who is looking in, constantly calculating how to belong in a world that is built to exclude him. This isn't just a personal discomfort, it's systematic, and normal people doesn't shy away from critiquing it. Rooney writes, it was culture as class performance, literature fetishized for its ability to take educated people on false emotional journeys, so that they might afterwards feel superior to the uneducated people whose emotional journeys they liked to read about. All books were ultimately marketed as status symbols, and all writers participated to some degree in this marketing. Now, for a moment, let's circle back to labubus. They are this cheap luxury that isn't limited to the upper class and is a disguised status symbol. A lot of people are buying these just to fit themselves in this trend. There's a TikTok video of a girl where she talks about how she didn't like labubus when they first got trendy, and now she has an entire collection. So yes, they have become a class performance. The point isn't the object, the point is the performance. You don't purchase a labubu because it sparks joy. You are buying it because you want to prove that you are part of the timeline. In a way, Connell's discomfort at the Trinity College is an analog version of this. He isn't missing the thing, he's just missing the signal. He doesn't know the right books to name drop, the right parties to show up, and the right way to wear depression like a fashion statement. Back to normal people, it's clear that Connell and Marianne, despite their love for each other, experience that love within the confines of capitalism. Their economic backgrounds not just determine who they are as people, how they connect, communicate, and ultimately fall in love with each other. For better or worse, their relationship is a product of class division. So how would Karl Marx respond to all of this? Capitalism and consumerism go hand in hand, and labubu is just a product of our consumerist culture. There is so much productive power in capitalism that most of the times it creates so much product that there's no place to sell it. This is why it's constantly looking for new markets, undercutting competition or wages to harness the larger market share, etc. Look at it this way. Labubus have absolutely no use in our society. They are just dolls at the end of the day and clearly targeting people who are not children. Most of the crap that people are buying these days is often flimsy trinkets that they have absolutely no need of acquiring. Capitalism has created this mass media framework to bombard proletarians with product advertisements, often in sneaky subliminal ways. And this is how it manufactures demand for the shit that it produces by indoctrinating the entire population into this consumer culture. Again, with labubus, Lisa posts them and suddenly boom, they're everywhere and everybody absolutely needs them, even if they have to go to 5 different malls looking for them or having to stand in line for hours in front of a vending machine. This artificial demand pushes people as far as buying entire boxes of labubus just to get their favorite colored one. The point of saying all this is not to degrade people for wanting to hop onto a trend. The problem is overconsumption of something so useless and cheaply produced that will end up becoming a whole lot of waste in the coming years when people have moved on from labubus and TikTok gives them a new trend to hop onto and spend their money on. In a socialist state, something like labubus cannot possibly exist as they are not a basic need. They might be a source of entertainment, but this one is rooted heavily into consumerist culture. What attracts people towards it is not its visual appeal but its performance appeal. You can't walk down a street with a labubu attached to the strap of your bag without a bunch of people turning around to look at it. In that way, it's also a status symbol in a sense that if you have the rare labubu, it either means that you spent hundreds of dollars on it or you got really lucky. Unfortunately, the case will pretty much be the former. However, Karl Marx considered consumption a good thing and thought that it provided freedom and fulfillment to the working class. Marx and his crew engaged with the pop culture of their time, and it gives us enough insight about the matter. We often talk about overconsumption as if it's just people making bad personal choices. Like, if everybody would just stop buying pastel colored Stanley Cups or little monster dolls, the world will be fixed. But that framing is so individualistic and it totally ignores the structures that manufacture those desires in the first place. Because in capitalism, people are not just buying things, they're trying to buy a sense of belonging. That's why Labubu is not just a doll. It's a social signal. It says I'm part of the timeline. It says I have taste, I have access, I'm in. And the reason why it's so effective is because capitalism thrives on not what people need, but on what they fear they'll be excluded from. Pop Mart sells people scarcity, community, and cuteness all wrapped up in an overpriced blind box. It's not just a purchase, it's a performance. And it is one that resets every month with a new drop, new color, new FOMO. This cycle is exhausting by design. Capitalism doesn't want its consumers to be content, it wants them to always crave for more. That's how it keeps them spending. We've been trained to measure our lives in upgrades, in platforms, and in products, more than in relationships or rest. And when the system fails to meet our needs, it gaslights us into thinking that maybe we need to buy the right thing next time. Something meaningful, something that makes us feel whole. And the important part is, it never does. This also explains why so many of us feel guilt when we do buy the things that we like. There's this pressure to be ethical, minimalist, and above it all. But here's the trap. Capitalism loves when people feel bad about consuming, because that shame is what keeps the wheel moving. You're not meant to escape the cycle, just to keep blaming yourself for being stuck in it. So the goal isn't to stop consuming altogether. That's not realistic or even doable. The goal is to recognize the manipulation, to question the stories that we're sold, and to remind ourselves that joy, rest, and community are not commodities. Now let's circle back to normal people for a while. Conal just doesn't want to belong. He wants to know the rules of the game, the right books to read, the right kind of thing to say at the parties, and the right kind of sad. And the tragedy is, he's already disqualified. Not because he's incapable, but because he wasn't born in the class that wrote the rules. Just like we keep buying new things to feel seen, Conal keeps on performing a new version of himself that gets accepted. And again, it doesn't work out for him either. The point isn't that the entire world needs to leave labubus behind. It's totally fine if getting a small monster doll makes you feel something. The point is that it's the same thing repackaged again and again and sold to the masses as something important. Yesterday we had the steel cups, today we have the cheap dolls, and as long as internet is around, tomorrow we'll always have something on these lines ready for us. As you're watching this video, some company out there is already planning a sponsorship with celebrities and influencers to get the TikTok folks addicted to something new. And the worst part is, people will always fall for it. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you have anything more to add to this conversation, I would love to hear, so drop it in the comments below. Until next video, goodbye!
Bam!